Hello and welcome to Business on the Wire. I'm Mitali Mukherjee. With a population of 138 crore at last count, India has had a numbers debate for a long time. But layered under that debate is a particular narrative. The fact that, or the narrative that, this growth in population is happening because of one religious community. The Muslims are procreating too fast. They're doing it in order to gain political power. Islam is against family planning. In his book, The Population Myth, Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, takes on many of these narratives and looks at what the data and statistics, and this is data available with the government of India in terms of population figures, actually points to. He joins me now to talk about some of these myths and what the data actually revealed when he studied. Thank you, Dr. Qureshi, for joining me, and congratulations on this deeply detailed book that you've put a lot of time and effort into. I think one good way for us to go about this conversation is perhaps to pick up each narrative that exists at this point, and then walk through that both in terms of what data and history and statistics point to. So let's take up the first one, which is the, I would say, the headline propagation in terms of what people have to say about population generally. Muslims produce too many children and they are solely responsible for the population explosion. Let's walk through this perhaps in a decade by decade step, so we can move through the journey better.
Yes, this is something which we have heard for years, for 30, 40, 50 years. And since we heard it so many times, we started believing it. In 1995, I started writing on this subject accidentally when UNFPA country director contacted me to write a strategy paper for promotion of family planning among the Muslims. Yeah. Well, I said I'm not an Islamic scholar, nor have I ever worked in family planning department. Why have you picked on me? He, in any case, was very persuasive and he made me accept this assignment. With this proviso, he was offering me a very lucrative 1.5 lakh rupees when my salary was 5,000. So I said, no, I will do it pro bono. And which was an inner voice, and I think it turned out to be very right. Because later on, when my paper was ready, I was confronted by some Muslims for writing on behalf of, say, international organizations and the Western countries in return for payment. Since I had not accepted anything, I was able to counter their argument. Now, the first myth which we had heard, and that Muslims are solely responsible for population explosion and they produce so many children. The impression created was that if a Hindu family has 2 children, Muslims have 8 or 10 children. I had that belief. I don't know whether you had or not, but it turned out from my study that at no point in time the gap was more than 1 child. If Hindus had 5 children, Muslims had 6. If Hindus had 6, Muslims had 7. To be precise, 1.1, the gap was 1.1 child, which also now has come down to 0.48, less than half, because Muslims have been adopting family planning very proactively, very aggressively in the last 30 years or so, which is why they're catching up, which is why the gap is narrowing, right? Second thing, which was not mentioned in this propaganda, that if Muslims are producing the highest number of children, who are number 2? The number 2 are the Hindus. First of all, I'm very sorry to be talking in terms of Hindus and Muslims. Hindus and Muslims, that's something which I would like to avoid. But the topic demands that we need to clarify these issues. So, in any case, I'm also coming to the conclusion later that it is not a Hindu versus Muslim issue at all. Yeah. The issues are different, which we have lost track of. Now, if Muslims have the highest birth rate, who has the second highest birth rate? That becomes important, and that is Hindus. And considering that they're 80% of the country, and their high birth rate will add much more. Now, to give you an example, that in 1951, the gap between Hindus and Muslims was about 30 crores, 27 crores to be precise. Yeah. By the last census, which is 2011, the gap had gone up to 80 crores. From 7 crores to 80 crores, that is the gap between Hindus and Muslims. So the gap actually is increasing. between the Hindus and Muslims instead of shrinking as the propaganda would like to believe. Therefore, obviously there is no threat. In any case, to clinch this issue, Mithali, I requested a friend of mine, Dr. Dinesh Singh, who was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. He's a great mathematician. He and his colleague, Professor Ajay Kumar, did a mathematical model for me. I sent them all my data and I said, in how many years do you think the Muslims will take over the Hindus as is being propagated? He has given a graph, which is now with you. He said, no question ever, not even in 1,000 years. Yeah. So I think after that, this propaganda should end.
Yeah, and I do want to come to that in a little bit, Dr. Qureshi, but just to, labor on this point a little bit, what do you think has propagated this idea or this narrative? Was there a period in time where indeed there was great divergence in the rates of increase? For example, you write in your book where you've gone through the census data of the last couple of decades, and you say that to this extent, the right-wing allegation that the proportion of Hindus has come down in 7 decades in direct proportion to the increase in minority population, especially the Muslims, is correct. But what is the magnitude of this change and its implications is an issue that needs to be addressed. I'm just trying to understand what is lending so much fuel to this narrative even at this point.
Yeah, correct. They say that the demographic balance is getting disturbed. To a certain extent, it is correct in the sense that in 1951, the Hindus were 84%, and they have come down in 60 years to 79.9%. Which means 4.1 or 2% they've come down. Yeah. This reduction among the Hindus has been distributed over all communities, particularly the Muslims, no doubt. And their number has gone up, their percentage has gone up from 9.8 to 14.2. Now, this is 4 percentage points in 60 years. Now, 10%, now mind you, the Muslims were 10% in 1951. To become majority, they should become at least 51, which means they should be increase of 40%. Now, if 4 percentage point has taken 60 years, 40 percentage point will take 600 years. If nothing changes, but things are changing, Muslims are adopting family planning much faster, which is why the gap is narrowing. Which is why the mathematical model says that there is no question of Muslims overtaking Hindus ever. So what can be more reassuring for the Hindus? Therefore, if this is at the root of all hate propaganda to create fear among the Hindus about the Muslims, I think it should be banished forever, because these are all Government of India facts and figures. These are all Government of India data. And Professor Dinesh Singh is not my cousin.
I want to address the second myth, which is that, and the term you used earlier, the demographic balance. The Muslim population is upsetting the demographic balance. For someone who's watching and doesn't understand this, first of all, what does a demographic balance indicate? And secondly, the underlying truth, which is the fact that for India's population, and I don't mean this community or that, we are plateauing off. We are not in that inclined rate of increase anymore.
Yeah, the demographic balance is nothing but proportion of various communities in the population. Now, as I mentioned, that the proportion of Muslims has gone up from 9.8 to 14.2 in 60 years. But the threat to a community has to be seen in terms of actual numbers. In actual numbers, the gap between Hindus and Muslims has gone up from 27 crores to more than 80 crores, and is increasing. So where is the threat? In fact, the Muslims that way are dwindling in actual numbers compared to the Hindu population, because that is also growing equally fast, just a bit lower than the Muslims. For instance, 45% of Muslims have adopted family planning. But the second lowest family planning acceptance is of the Hindus with 54%. Compare it with the Sikhs at 80%. Christians and others is 75, 79, 80%. Hindus are only 54%. So if Muslims have to be blamed, So should the Hindus be, because their birth rate is also very high. Even in terms of total fertility rate, which let me explain what it means. Total fertility rate is the number of children a woman will bear in her lifetime. Now, the total fertility rate of the Muslims is the highest, no doubt. It is 2.61 in the lifetime. That means every woman, every Muslim woman will produce in a lifetime 2.61 children. How does it compare with the Hindus? 2.13. The gap is less than 0.5%, 0.48. So, which is not very high. So, whereas the 6 TFR has come down to 1.5 or something. Now, recently, the Prime Minister in his Republic Independence Day address related it to patriotism. He says less children mean more patriotic. So, who is the most patriotic, by the way? The Sikhs, not the Hindus. And who is the least patriotic? The Muslims, followed by the Hindus. Now, these are cold statistics, Government of India statistics. So, linking it with patriotism, then if you take it then all the way, then at the drop of a hat, the followers of Mr. Modi, they call every Sikh a Khalistani. Even the Sikh farmers are being called Khalistani day in and day out. So now you should know your facts then before making an allegation. You should be very sure of the fact, particularly at the highest level.
Let's slice this another way, Dr. Qureshi, because we've sliced this, of course, for communities, but I want to slice this for what's happening region-wise, where I think a large part of the story also exists in terms of the comparison between North India and the southern part of India. And you write as well that in general, India has large interstate variations in fertility. So the lowest is states like Kerala, but then we come to the 3 largest states, which is Uttar Pradesh at 4.76, including Uttarachal, Madhya Pradesh at 3.39, including Chhattisgarh, Bihar at 4.44, including Jharkhand. Is the population problem a North India problem?
Yes, it is indeed, because already 25, 26 states have already achieved the replacement rate. Now, let me also explain to you the replacement rate.
Yeah.
There are 2 parents. They will be succeeded by 2 children. So parents die and the children take over. That means the population is replaced.
1 for 1.
Now, why 2.1? 2.1. The point 1 is to keep a margin for the children who can die earlier. So before the adulthood, that's why 2.1. So 2.1 is the replacement rate. Now, 26 states have already achieved a replacement rate of 2.1 or even lower, which means their population will now start declining after a few years. After the initial ongoing momentum of births goes on, after a decade or a decade and a half, the population will start declining. Now, only 4 states are problem states, which were already considered a problem state and were called by experts as Bimaru state. Bimaru doesn't mean that they were sick, but Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and UP, the Hindi belt. So there, and why is it that they are doing badly? Because that is something which needs to be understood. That the real factors are not religion. The real factors are not Islam. The real factors are namely 3, particularly education, especially of girls. Second, income. Third, service delivery. As the literacy goes up, number of children goes down. As the income goes up, number of children goes down. As service delivery improves, number of children goes down. And in all these 3 indicators, these 4 states are very backward. And Muslims are the most backward. If you look at community-wise, Muslims are the least, the most backward, followed by the Hindus. Hindus are also backward. Now, I would like to mention that in 25 states, Muslim TFR is better, lower than of Hindus of Bihar. If religion was a factor, Muslims everywhere in the country would have a high TFR, the higher TFR. Why do they have a lower TFR than Bihar? Because Bihar Hindus are also backward. They are also poor. They also need education. Their health services also need to improve. And so in UP.
Is there a TFR breakup for these 4 or 5 states, sir, in terms of what's happening with the Hindu rate and the Muslim rate? I'm trying to understand where this notion is being propagated from. Are people seeing something which is, sort of reinstating or re-establishing the narrative in their head? Or are the rates fairly similar between Hindus and Muslims in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh?
So there is a wide variation. And in fact, if you open page 42 of my book, that chart actually is very expressive. That gives TFR of Hindus and Muslims throughout the country.
I'm looking
and
at.
When I say 25 states have Muslims have better TFR than Hindus of Bihar, it is from this chart, which is from National Family Health Survey number 3 and number 4.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Chhattisgarh at 1.60 for Hindus, 2.11 for Muslims. Madhya Pradesh at 2.32 and 2.47, so very small gap over there. And then, of course, we come to Uttar Pradesh, where it is at 2.67 for Hindus and 3.09 for Muslims. So not that wide a percentage, not that wide a variation. There's another myth which is tied to, political authority, Dr. Qureshi, which is that this is an organized conspiracy to first take over the population and then capture political power.
Yes, number one, I have not come across any Maulvi, any Mullah, any Imam telling the Muslims that you should produce many children so that you capture political power. I have not heard one. Maybe the right wing has some data and some videos on that. Would be happy to see them. I haven't, and I'm 74-year-old, never in my life. Although I have heard the Imams and the Mullahs saying that Islam is against family planning, do not adopt family planning because Islam is against it. Now, this I have heard, but that is a notion which needs to be dispelled. In fact, when I was writing in my book, I asked the Government of India, the Joint Secretary then, what efforts have you made to convince the Muslims that Islam is not against family planning? They say, no, we don't look at it as a communal issue. We have not tried to find out. As a communication man, I'm a PhD in social marketing. In social marketing, people are no target audience. It is the segments of audiences which are our target, like men and women, rich and poor, urban, rural, young and old. These are, and they think differently. You can't have one campaign for everybody. Now, as a family planning worker, if you come to me, Qureshi, you have many children, you should adopt family planning. And I tell you that, no, I cannot because my religion is against family planning. Now, you don't know the fact, I don't know the fact, and therefore you will just go away. Now, have we prepared our workers with knowledge so that they can counter this false propaganda that Islam is against family planning? And I have given, and in fact, I have volunteered. In my book, the whole chapter is about how to promote family planning among the Muslims. Yep. And I'm volunteering. I have also volunteered pro bono. I will prepare a resource book for Government of India. How to promote family planning among the Muslims, because there are pockets of resistance, no doubt, but not because of organized propaganda for political power, but because they believe. Now, interestingly, although I have examined what is the position of Islam, there is a whole chapter on what does Islam say about family planning.
Yeah.
And that is a myth among the Muslims which I have tried to dispel. And I have quoted a verse from the Quran that nowhere in the Quran family planning has been prohibited. And whereas now drinking is prohibited, rape is prohibited, corruption is prohibited. So whatever God wanted to prohibit, He has prohibited specifically. And there is a verse in the Quran which says that whatever we wanted you not to do, we have explained to you in detail. But family planning, they have not prohibited.
And it's interesting you talk about what should happen with the ground staff that goes and speaks to communities, because I was talking to someone who's a nodal officer for vaccinations, and she made the same point, which is that we are not going deep into the communities, and hence we are not attacking the myths surrounding the COVID vaccine, the fact that it causes infertility, which can only happen when you are close to a community and you understand how to talk to them in a way that they relate to. But our conversation started about politics and political power, and that's what I wanted to just touch upon. In June this year, Himanta Biswa Sarma, who is the Chief Minister of Assam, made a comment saying Muslims should adopt a family planning policy to combat poverty and other social problems in the state. Ahead of the UP elections, the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister has also announced a two-child policy. It seems to discourage, communities and families from planning anymore. In your experience, how does this kind of negative coercion actually work when you're trying to work towards family planning or diminishing the rate of growth?
Yeah. The coercive measures have always failed. Let us not forget what happened during the emergency in 1975-77, when family planning was pushed down the throat of the nation, and as a result, Congress lost badly. Indira Gandhi lost the election, and since then, family planning has become a taboo subject. No politician is happy to talk about it. And in fact, there was a Government of India committee headed by me 5-6 years ago, set up by National Institute of Health and Family Welfare, to examine what is the attitude of politicians toward family planning. And we examined parliament questions which were asked during 4 Lok Sabhas, 13, 14, 15 and 16, that means 20 years. For 20 years, all that they asked by way of parliament questions on family planning was 0.5%. It's a taboo subject, untouchable. They don't want to talk about it. Why? Because there was a backlash in 1975. In some states, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and that's a few years ago, for local body elections, they made this compulsory that if you have more than 2 children, you cannot contest election. Do you know what the consequence? A study was done by Mrs. Nirmala Buch of Madhya Pradesh, a senior IS officer, and she found that the men started divorcing their wives. Men started giving away their children in adoption to the others. So the adverse effect on women because they wanted to contest the election to stay eligible, they started divorcing. Is that what we want? So, and she found that there were disastrous consequences, particularly for women, in all these states where coercion was adopted. Now, here I'll give you the counterpoint. Population control is a great idea. Family planning program is a great idea. If Assam Chief Minister says Muslims should do it, it's a great idea, except that he should tell Hindus also that they should also accept family planning. And I've shown you that they are not far behind. Family planning is a good idea for everybody. The moment you single out a community, the purpose is absolutely wrong. That means you're playing politics. You are trying to divide the Hindus and Muslims, which needs to be called out, which seems to be what is happening. Yes, there should be family planning. We already have a national population policy of 2000, and the target of which was to achieve the replacement level of 2.1 by 2010. We are a bit late. And why are we late? Thanks to the state of Mr. Yogi, UP. Thanks to Bihar. So, and why? Because the literacy is low. What is he doing about literacy? Because there is poverty of Hindus and Muslims. What is he doing about poverty of Hindus and Muslims? Every community, the service, the health infrastructure is in a mess. What is he doing about that? These are the determining factors. Now, which should be addressed automatically. Hindus, Muslims, they will all benefit. They will all be doing family planning. And already I have showed you 25 states, Muslims are doing better than Hindus of Bihar. And almost 20 states where Muslims are better than Hindus of UP. So it should not be viewed as a Hindu-Muslim issue at all. There is no Hindu rate or a Muslim rate. It is dependent on regional socio-economic factors. They need to be addressed.
The other very prevalent myth has been around polygamy, Dr. Qureshi, and I don't think in that entire argument sex ratio has been taken into consideration at all, because that's been slipping. In fact, for states like Haryana, it's actually taken another abysmal dive. Uh, and you have countered that. So, walk us through that argument. The fact that it's statistically actually not possible to be practicing polygamy at the rate at which it is being, imagined to.
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you brought out this point, polygamy, because we have heard from a very top leader, hum panch hamare 25. Yeah. Meaning that I have 4 wives, making me 5, and I have 25 children. Or hum char hamare 40, hum char biwiyan 40 bacche. Now, this is a common expression being used by the right wing, and by the top people, mind you. Now, this is absolutely absurd. Why? Because in India, polygamy is just not possible statistically. You've heard of gender ratio. For gender ratio is proportion of men and women. For 1,000 men, according to the last census, there were only 940 women. In fact, throughout 100 years, last 100 years, the gender ratio has been adverse against women. 920, 25, 30, no, 40. Now, which means against 1,000 men, 940 women, every single man does not have even one wife. There are 60 men, according to this, who will stay bachelor because there is no woman. The second woman, even one woman for one man does not exist. If I want to marry second, where will I get that woman? She does not exist. We have shortage of women. In fact, it may sound like a joke, but it is statistically a very sound thing. That statistically, no man has even one full wife, they have only 0.9 wife. This is not addressed to you, Mitali. You are a
No offense taken, sir. I want to go back to that point you made about diving into this in a statistical model. The fact that there will never be a point, not in any of our lifetimes, where the Muslim community will overtake the Hindu community. And you write as well, upon the author's request, a mathematical model was prepared by Professor Dinesh Singh and Professor Ajay Kumar. It conclusively proves that the Muslim population will never exceed the Hindu population. The difference is never going to be zero, no matter how much time we take into account. At what point, sir, do you think this will sink in? That's my question, really.
So I think if you show this graph through this interview and other media, and in fact through social media, WhatsApp group, if we just pass on this graph to people, this will reassure them that there is no question of Muslim they were overtaking. So now, even I did not know before I got this model. I had a hunch that this model should be attempted, which is why I requested these 2 professors, and they were kind. And in fact, till 2100, there is a graph which shows up even up to 2100. You can extend it as many centuries as you like. That is what Professor Ajay was telling me even yesterday. So this is how it will go up and up and up for the Hindus.
Are we considering enough solutions and alternatives around family planning, to Dr. Qureshi? Because, some of the examples in neighboring countries suggest there are other things that can be done. Instead of permanent options or permanent measures, you offer spacing measures, you bring up the marriageable age, education, of course, as you alluded to. There are other solutions that exist. Are we even exploring them at this point?
By now, the Mitali, we already have a lot of experience. We are the country which had the first national family planning program in 1952. And I would like to say that our family planning program actually is a success in the sense that we are almost there. Just in a couple of years, even UP and Bihar will achieve what the rest of the country has already achieved, and we will achieve the replacement ratio. By 2040 or so, our population will stabilize, and perhaps it will then start coming down a little. So, and family planning is not just an India issue, it is a global issue. And our own family planning program, which was, it is not based on coercion. The only coercion which was done during emergency, as I mentioned, had a backlash.
Yeah.
Since then, it is voluntary. It focuses more on a spacing method rather than sterilization. Because even in sterilization, we found women were the victims. Men will put women forward for um, tubectomy rather than coming forward for vasectomy himself. So now, one interesting side point I would like to mention, although all the ulama, the Islamic scholars agree worldwide that sterilization is not allowed in Islam. Spacing is allowed and preferred, recommended. Despite that, 20% of Indian Muslims have accepted sterilization. 20%, despite the knowledge that this is un-Islamic. So that means the Muslims are very enthusiastic about family planning. Like other communities, we need to do a little more of what we have been doing, what has been successful in, say, South India. We should adopt in Bihar and UP also. And no rocket science, simple. Focus on education, poverty, and health delivery. Improve these services in a mission mode in Assam, in UP, in Bihar. You do that, and then everybody will improve, including the Muslims and Hindus.
Let me ask you a final question, and I hope you answer, candidly, because not just election commissioner, you are at the helm of affairs at Prasar Bharati. You understand the importance of media and broadcast and the impact it can have on the average citizen. What do you do in an environment where the social media machinery is actually working towards propagating all of these myths that we've talked about, where it is not about science or about facts, where it is about just constantly adding a little bit of fuel to an already existing fear? Equally for the electronic media, the television channels specifically, which are peddling false information around many of these issues. What do you do in an environment like that, where the polity, is not tuned to listening to facts or science or what data actually suggests?
Yeah, well, it is true that media is very powerful, and particularly social media is very powerful, and powerful both ways, negatively and positively. The fact is, the propaganda that Muslims are multiplying very fast, deliberately, with political intention, everything, nobody actually countered it. If we had started countering it 20 years or 30 years ago, probably we would not have reached this stage. But even now, it's never too late. The feedback which I have received during the 6 months of discussion on my book and the reviews of my book, not one person had criticized it on facts, because the data is all Government of India data. I've just put it in perspective. I throw a challenge and say, let anybody question these facts, because we never confronted them with these falsehoods. So the many people have admitted to me, and Hindus, mind you, that, oh, sorry, we did not know these facts. These are eye-opening facts. I wish we knew it earlier. Now, which means most people are reasonable people. They're intellectually honest people. They were happy to respond to the truth. If a figure is thrown at them, you will believe it, unless I counter it with a different figure, which is just the opposite of what is being projected. So we need to disseminate this information as quickly and as widely as possible, because we have to catch up on what the damage done in 30 years. So now you as a communicator, you also suggest to me and to your company how to disseminate the truth, and question me if I'm wrong, pillory me if I'm wrong, hang me. But then by all means, please discuss with facts and figures. Because, and my own understanding is there has to, if I try to make an emotional appeal or a political appeal, that's all useless. We are just talking on facts, on figures. Okay, look, this is the reality. Now make whatever you do of it.
No, absolutely. And I hope more and more people choose to pivot to what the facts point to rather than what their own beliefs are or what they've been led to believe. Congratulations again, sir, on such a deeply detailed book. I can already see it quoted in so many discussions about population. So I think part of that job has already been done. But thank you for our chat today and for your time.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.